Hi guys, Bearded Rogue here, again, continuing with my Tony Unpacks in Oregon series of games. Today we're in Box 18, and Box 18 is full of a whole bunch of smaller games that I have, games that I do not have the boxes for. I've gotten rid of them because I carry them around in my quiver or in deck boxes of various kinds, but we're going to go through what I have in here, and we'll go from there. So, starting off, I have the Great Brain Robbery, Enemy Chocolatier, Give Me the Brain, and Get Out, all from Cheap Ass Games. Cheap Ass Games is the company of James Ernst. You will have heard me mention him before in in I think one other video, maybe two. He also was responsible for Kill Dr. Lucky. But all of them are designed to be sold very, very cheaply with no components. You provide the components in order to play them, which is a very novel and interesting way of doing it. This one is the only one I have that's in a box. It's a newer one. They used to be sold in all of these little envelopes, and it's mostly just the rules, occasionally some boards, stuff like that. Not actual physical boards, more like heavy cardstock, but they're all they were all really cheap, and the rule sets were pretty solid, and this was his business model for quite some time until he started doing more deluxe type games like TAC, and taking on more passion project type games. He's somebody that I feel doesn't know how to not be a designer, so he just had to get all the games out of his head, and this was a way that he could do that and still share them with the world instead of just kind of hanging on to them in his home. Let's see, what else do I have here? So in this box, I have a whole bunch of small games. I have my copy of Star Realms. Star Realms is a really fun two-person head-to-head deck builder. It's directly combative, which makes it different from a lot of deck builders, which are very much engine building type games. In this one, you're still building an engine, but you're using it to knock each other's life points down. They're not really life, but that's roughly what they equate to as far as things go. Really small, cheap, cheap as in price, not cheap as in quality, deck builder that has a lot to offer for people. It's also really easy to teach. It uses a lot of the similar mechanisms as Ascension. A lot of people prefer the artwork in it. I prefer Ascension's artwork personally. I no longer own Ascension because I own everything from Ascension on the app, and I play it pretty much exclusively online. But Star Realms I still play in person, especially since it's so easy to carry. Throw it in a deck box or in my quiver, and I can just bring it. The other thing in here is the prototype version of Deck of Thieves, which I talked about in a previous video, so I'm not going to go into it again here. Just this is the actual prototype version that I play tested for Jason Fordham before he kickstarted the game and eventually released it. So that's that. Next is... what's in here? Ooh, a whole bunch of good stuff in here. My copy of Coup. My copy of Get Lucky, the Kill Dr. Lucky card game. My copy of Urbion, which is another one of the Oniverse games. Used to be Equilibrion. They were forced to change the name to Urbion. Some copies of Equilibrion are still out there. They were mostly released in Canada and foreign language markets. In the US, they changed it to Urbion. This is the only one that has not had a deluxe release yet. I think all of the problems that plagued its release cycle kept the quantity sold down low enough that they just haven't done a re-release yet in a deluxe version. I personally really like the game. You are trying to balance the positives and negatives in a city, and chaos comes in and wrecks things It's basically one big equation. You're trying to keep both sides of the equation equal, or make both sides of the equation equal in order to score. I really like the game. It's really fun. It's probably the one of his games that I prefer solo. More than the two-player version of the game, but I like it. All the Oniverse games are great. If you can track this one down, you might be able to find it for cheap, although I think it's out of print now. It's really good. My copy of Yin Yang, which is another Dr. Knizia game that is a trick-taking game with no suits. It's very, very intriguing. I really love the game. It's one of my favorites. One of my favorite trick-taking games that's out there, because it plays very different than other trick-taking games. You're trying to play to the center and have a score as close to 0 as possible, and that's something that a lot of trick-taking games aren't normally doing. I have my copy of Koi Pond from Daniel Solis in here. Another really solid card game from him. Let me see what's in this box. This is these are my Todd Sanders games. So I talked about Aether Captains earlier. Todd Sanders does a lot of really awesome little solo games. Some of these aren't solo. They're actually competitive games, but several of them are set in the Aether Captains universe. Aether Captains. He also released a couple of things that were what he called triads, which were like 3 smaller games that he released together and had them printed on like Printer Studio. I was super excited to get this from one of my longtime fans. I guess I'll call you a fan, Eric. I'm sorry if that's demeaning, but Eric's an awesome dude, and he saw my Aether Captains review back in the day and got himself a copy and really likes it as well. And so he sent me some more of Todd's work. And I am so grateful to have that, because it's, much like Aether Captains itself, a pretty rare thing to find out in the wild. I really like it. Let's see, what's next? Inside this one I have The Agents, which may be getting rebranded soon. I've seen some stuff about it recently. My copies of Hemlock, Vault of Darkness, and Omen, A Reign of War are in here. They are both games from Smallbox Publishing that I really like. They're 2-player games. The Agents can play up to 4. Its big unique thing is that the cards are, when you play them, you are effectively giving the effect of one side of the card to another player, and you have the you get one effect and they get another effect. So they're all double-ended cards, which is a pretty cool mechanism that I've seen used a couple of other places, and even in some of my designs I've used it. But some neat little card games there. Sorry I'm kind of flying through these, but there's so many of them at this point that I don't want to spend too much time. Here's the review copy of Dead Drop that I was given by Crash Games back in the day. Here's a copy of Where Art Thou, Romeo, which is a small little deduction game set in the same world as the same Shakespearean play as Council of Verona. And then I have my copy of The Game. I have my copy of Monsters Under My Bed from Chris Rowlands. I have a very interesting product. It's not a game itself. It's a for me, it's a prototyping tool, but it's called the Badger Deck. You can see the back here. Gentleman on Board Game Geek designed these. Badger is his little logo, and they are amazing cards. The artwork on them, each suit is somewhat styled in a different culture, and they have additional suits beyond the traditional suits, and additional ranks beyond the additional ranks even. So like, Each one also has its own unique color, like spades are now blue, and the green clubs. And then if we look a little further, they have crescent moons, which are purple, and bats. The bat suit is one of my favorites. And just various other things. Anytime I need to prototype a game that is a game that is cards with numbers, I will pull out my Badger deck and use it for that. You can also use it for more traditional card games, obviously. It'll play a traditional card game just fine. All 4 of the original suits are present. If you don't mind, you can play with the other more unique suits like coins, bats, like I said, stars exists as a very traditional suit. There's even a way to play Teach-You with this. I've never played Teach-You, but there are a few extra cards inside the Badger deck. The way that it's made that enable you to play Teach-You with it, which is pretty neat. Overall, it's a really cool product. I don't know if he's still selling them or if they're still available, but it's one of my favorite things that I found on Board Game Geek and later purchased my own copy of. Really cool prototyping thing. Next thing I have after my Badger deck is my 2 copies of the 1-card CCG called Shift. My playmat came out in one of my earlier videos. I had it boxed separately, but Shift is literally a 1-card CCG. Each player has 1 character, like this penguin here with boxer shorts on its head and a cape, and you have 4 stats. So it's Shift because you have your normal stats, and then you turn the card to change your stats. And you can turn one of 2 ways, and then you have like a maximum way. And you fight traditional like CCG style, like it's a back and forth game where you're trying to score points, and it's really cool. I really like this one. I bring it with me in a lot of my deck boxes or quivers if I'm planning on doing like a head-to-head game night. I do have a pretty standard quiver configuration, but like Omen, Reign of War, Hemlock, Shift, and several other things. If I'm doing a specifically like 2-player night, I'll load all of those games into my quiver instead. I have my copy, my Kickstarter edition of Angry Dice from Dice Hate Me, with all of the different dice themed on their particular games. This is one of those, you know, dumb little filler games that you can play with anyone to kill time. I have it in one of these plastic Ultra Pro cases so that I can keep all the dice and keep it safe, and then I put the Angry Dice rules card in so that I know what it is. And the other side is the opposite side of the Angry Dice rules card. That way I know what everything does. Have my copy of Madder Than a Hatter. This is a game that Chevy Dodd gave away for free at Gen Con a couple years ago. He had this tradition of designing a game and then giving it away if you found him at Gen Con, and he was one of the individuals that I was following very, very heavily on social media, watching him design this game. I actually played, I don't want to say play tested, but I did play it while it was still in full prototype form and give Chevy some feedback on how things went. I don't know how much of my stuff he incorporated, but you're a haberdasher in a small town and you're trying to create a tableau of hats. You don't want the same hats. You want a myriad offering of hats, so it's pretty fun and plays really quickly. I'm really glad to have that one. Cypher is one of the best micro games out there. If you haven't played it, I highly recommend that you do. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, unfortunately, because I still have about half of this box to go, and we're already running long. But Cypher is a very, very good game. My copy of Love Letter, another micro game from the micro game trend. It kind of kicked off the micro game trend. In my opinion, it's not the best of them, but it's very solid for what it is, and I'm glad I have my own copy. I never got any of the themed copies, even though that would probably be more appealing now. However, I've already got a copy, so I don't need any more copies, even though a different IP might be better. And the fact that they slide in new rules to all of the themed copies is really neat, but not something that I've really looked into too heavily. So there's that. Next, let's see, what else do I have in here? Lots of little things here, just bits and bobs from other things that aren't games. Still going here. Let me find. Okay. I believe I know what this is. This right here is. Yep, this is all of my Cards Against Humanity. I am one of those individuals who likes to play Cards Against Humanity. I know that there are a lot of people for whom it is not a funny experience and not anything they want to encourage in our hobby. I think the Cards Against Humanity guys and gals and individuals, the people who make the game, are freaking great. They do a lot of good in this world. They do a lot of really silly stuff too, like send people boxes of cow manure. But they're generally really good folks. And while the game isn't for everyone, and I understand that there's a lot of bits and pieces to it that people find offensive, it's not anything I would ever play in public, but it's something that I do like playing with other adults, particularly non-gamers, in a late night after we've done everything else. We'll bring out it or Bad Medicine or some other game that's much more socially oriented than thinky oriented, and just play around with it. I find a lot of the humor funny, but I'm also a straight, white, psi male who doesn't have any of the typical concerns about a lot of those kinds of humor. The world's kind of been designed for me at this point, through no fault of my own, but I benefit from it, and as such, a lot of the humor isn't triggering for me personally. I do not, however, try to make anyone play it. It's never a game that I suggest that we play. It's just one of those games that occasionally comes up as something to play. Let me see what else. This is all just some various random prototyping tokens and extra tokens from games, like the cardboard bits from my deluxe copy of Orleans are in this box, so nothing really to show off there. Last but not least is a game that I haven't played, that was given to me as a gift by one of my friends that I used to game with in Kentucky before I was leaving. It's a game that I've heard both good and bad things about. I've heard that it's like 100% solvable and there's one best strategy and you should just execute it always. And I've heard other people say that it's a variable experience, and if you're not one of those power gamers who goes and seeks out the one strategy online, or if you're willing to buy the expansion for it, that will just disappear, and that's Stanbull. I have yet to play Stanbull, so I don't know. I'm fascinated by the Moncala type mechanism of worker placement, and I've heard that this is, while there's a lot of people who think that there are faults in this game, I've heard that it's a lot less prone to AP than Five Tribes. Five Tribes is a game that I do not own, not because I think it's a bad game, but because I think that I am one of those players who will cause people to want to murder me if I were to play Five Tribes with them. I'm not exactly AP prone, but it can occasionally happen, and I don't want to be that guy who pulls out a game that I know is going to bring up those tendencies in myself. So I don't own a copy of Five Tribes. I've heard Istanbul is a little bit less AP-inducing, but I've also heard that there's really only one strategy to winning, so, I don't know yet. I haven't played it. That's why it's still in my collection. I want to give it a try and give it a fair shake on my own to see how I feel about it before it goes anywhere else. So that was that box. We've emptied it out. We're done with box 18. So we're gonna keep moving on. We're getting really close to the end here. I think there's maybe 4 more boxes, something like that. Anyway, that's it for this video. So Bearded Rogue out.